Hi everybody, this is Katje. Tonight I want to make a confession and I want to tell a story that I hope will offer people some good advice about a particular question I want to look at tonight. So let me begin with my confession. And that is that when I was a child, I was really kind of an odd person. I was rather strange, probably some people would say weird. And I feel like today, as I've grown older, I'm still rather odd and strange and weird, I think, to many people. I don't set out trying to be that way. I set out trying to be myself. And I think that when I do that, it probably comes across to many people as rather odd and strange and maybe even weird. And probably a lot of people, some people at least, don't really like that. And that's okay, they don't have to, but I'm going to always try to be honest with you. I'm going to try to tell you whatever it is that's on my mind. That doesn't mean that I'm right, but I'm trying to share it with you, and if you find it strange and odd and weird in a way that you don't like, then that's okay, I understand, but I'm still going to do it. So, with that confession out of the way, what I want to do now is tell a story. And what prompts me to tell this story is that I've noticed in recent days and weeks, I've noticed that I've come across young people who want certain things in life, and they are thinking about turning to supernatural powers in order to get them. Maybe the devil, or maybe certain kinds of spirits, or things that might offer them in exchange for their souls or for some kind of commitment would give them the things that they want in their lives. So, for example, success, maybe it would be money, maybe it would be success, fame, whatever it is. And I understand that because I think we live in a very complicated world, and it's hard sometimes to see how you can become successful unless you have a little extra help. So when you're young, or even older especially, it kind of makes sense sometimes that people consider looking to something beyond our normal experience that might help them get what they want. So I'm not going to dismiss that or try to question the legitimacy of the feelings behind that. I'm simply going to tell a story from my own experience, because there was a time in my life when I felt a very similar way, and I want just to tell that story, and then you can draw whatever conclusions you want to from it, that's fine. So when I was younger, I became interested at one point in my life in the tarot deck. These are cards that have been used in fortune telling, or sometimes it's known as cartomancy. And so I became very interested in that because at that point in my life, I wanted to be able to know more about the future and therefore be able to anticipate it. So I was very much interested in this, especially in high school. So when I was growing up in the South, there weren't any places there where I could find tarot cards. So what I did was I sort of made my own deck. I came up with a solution, sort of a homegrown solution. So I found a magazine that had some very glossy prints of medieval woodcuts or medieval paintings. I don't remember exactly what it was, but in any event, I found those and I cut them out and I pasted them onto cardboard squares about the size of a playing card each one. And in this way, I came up with a fairly good facsimile of the major arcana in the tarot deck. And so these are things like the sun and death, and the sort of the main cards in the tarot deck that people use when they are interested in sort of reading the future or trying to use the deck for supernatural purposes. And so I created this when I was in high school. I think it was like a sophomore or a junior perhaps. And I played around with it a little bit, but didn't really know what I was doing. And so I took the cards and I put them in a drawer one night and went to sleep. So as the night went on, I remember feeling very, very uncomfortable. And I felt like there was something in the room with me that I didn't really understand. I became frightened, somewhat anxious, and fearful of this presence. And the best way that I can describe it to you is it's almost as if you went, if you were to go into the wilderness where there was a cabin out in the middle of the woods, let's say, and there are a lot of wild animals around it, and you went to sleep in the cabin, but you left all the doors and the windows in the cabin open, then you would feel very vulnerable. And the best way I can describe what I felt that night with the tarot cards in my room, in the drawer of the desk, I felt like I was very vulnerable. There was something there that was threatening and that I didn't really understand. So at the time, I didn't really know what to make of that. But then I had another experience from roughly the same period in my life that helped to clarify, I think, what I was feeling and help me to understand it. And I think it will help maybe some of you who are experimenting with supernatural, practices to maybe understand some of the risk in that. So about the same time when I made the deck of tarot cards, the sort of homemade deck, I also had, my father had a pair of walkie-talkies that were very sophisticated. They had a wide range. You could get on them and hear people from like 20 miles or 25 miles away. So back then, before we had the internet, this was a fairly powerful device for communicating. And so I remember, being the odd and strange child that I was, I stole one of those and put it under my bed. And sometimes at night, I would take it out and I would turn it on and I would try to talk to people and see if I could find somebody or communicate with somebody out there within this 20-mile or 25-mile radius. And so I did that. Now, what happened one night was, it probably was sometime early in the school year. It was still late summer or early fall. And so I took the walkie-talkie out and I turned it on and I started to send out all kinds of messages. Is anybody out there? Could somebody answer, please? And I remember at one point somebody did answer, but it wasn't words. It was like a snarl. It was a human or an intelligent creature, whatever it was, but it was like a snarl, and it went on and on and on. It wasn't just static. It was almost like an animal growling at me through this walkie-talkie reception, but it was human, or there was intelligence in it. It was like filled with rage or something like that. And I don't know what it was. I still don't know what that was, but it stuck with me. That experience stuck with me, and when I put that experience together with the tarot card experience, where I felt like there was something in the room with me that was very threatening and very dangerous, then I sort of put two and two together, and I think like I had sort of a realization, and that is that, just like with the walkie-talkie, it's very dangerous to send contact or send messages out into a world to people or things that you don't really understand. It's almost like when you would pick up the telephone and call somebody that you don't know at all and ask them to help you and share very intimate details about your life and your experiences, and then ask that person, that total stranger, to help you. Well, this is kind of what's going on with people when they use the tarot deck or other kinds of supernatural practices or instruments to try to communicate with some kind of spiritual being or some kind of supernatural presence out there. You really don't know what you're talking to. Just like if you picked up the telephone and called a total stranger and started sharing these intimate details of your life with that stranger, you really don't know whom you're talking to. And you don't know what kind of presence or what kind of being you're inviting into your life. So it's probably, and definitely isn't, a very good idea to do that. Now, I could talk about Christianity. I'm a Christian, and I could talk about the Christian, or at least the Catholic understanding of why people should not be communicating with, using things like fortune telling or cartomancy or tarot cards. I'm not going to get into that right now because maybe many of you don't really share that belief, and I understand that. I respect that. But I'm trying to give you, especially those of you who may be tempted to experiment or play around with some of these supernatural practices, I'm trying to give you maybe a good reason not to do that, because it's risky. Let's go back to what I was saying about the Blair Witch Project a few videos ago. This is, if you believe psychologically on some point, if you believe that there's some kind of supernatural presence somewhere, whether it's out in the forest or whether it's in these cards that you are manipulating or in some kind of a Ouija board or whatever it is, if you feel that there's some kind of, that could possibly work, if there's any possibility in your mind that might actually be successful, then that's all the more reason to avoid it, to be very, very careful with it, because when you start playing around with those things, you don't really know what it is that's on the other end. If you think that there could be another end, and there might be something responding to you, then all the more reason to be very, very careful and to be very, very defensive, on your guard against that. Do not open yourself up to something that you don't understand. Do not open yourself up to, your life up to, something that really you have no comprehension of. That's basically, I think, the moral of my story. So that's all I have to say tonight. I wanted to do this because I do feel, I guess I wanted to show you that, yes, I am a kind of strange and weird person, but I think that because of that, I want to try to bring that to the table in a positive way, especially to help people, especially younger people, who are dealing with certain things that I've been through before in my life and maybe have a little experience with. But again, all I'm doing is putting it out there. I'm not saying that you have to agree with me or like it or anything else like that. If you find something useful in what I have to say, then please use it. If you don't find anything useful in it, then ignore it. Don't pay any attention to it and move on with your life. So this is Katje, and again, I thank you, all of you, for spending time with me. Whether you like what I have to say or you don't like what I have to say, thank you for checking out my videos, and know that I will continue to be strange and odd and weird, because that's part of who Good Witch Katje is, but you should be who you are, and I hope everybody will find peace and success in whatever it is that they're trying to do. So that's all I have to say tonight. I wish everybody a good night's sleep, and until next time, this is Katje saying goodbye.